In space, no one can hear you scream, and cats are a pretty good judge of character, as we've come to know in the Alien franchise. So, without further ado, let's jump into Alien Romulus.
You're crazy to know who I am, aren't you? All right, I'll show you.
I am Dracula.
Faith against faith.
Here's Johnny.
It is August 18th, at least when I'm filming this. Hopefully I'm getting this to you on a Sunday. It's been a minute for me. I've had a lot going on just with work and things with life, as anyone and everyone knows. So all of that comes first, obviously. And every now and then it can be pretty tiring. So I still try to get these out, but have been very, very busy as of late. So it is good to be back. These actually help re-energize me in a lot of ways. But it is August 18th. We are barreling towards, by far, my favorite season every year, and that is fall. And part of what makes fall so much fun, by far, is Halloween. And as we get into mid-August, going into September, I begin to, for the most part, I don't find that I'm really a seasonal movie watcher. I know some people are. For the most part, I feel like I'm not. But there are probably seasons that I watch more of a kind of movie here and there, I guess. And fall is one of those. So as we get into mid-August, going into September, usually that's when I start pulling out. I like to ease in with black and white horror, and then get into some of my other favorite horror films, which I'll probably do a list on that too. You guys know that I think the first top 10 list I really want to do is Disney. That's going to be a minute because I really want to give every film a chance. I want to rewatch a lot of those that I feel like, well, I'm not totally sure where this would be on my list. So that might take a minute. The rules of that are going to be it has to be Disney. It cannot be Pixar. So strictly Disney animated. But I think that'll be a very fun list to do for sure. But yeah, so now, I've launched into my horror, which a preview, I just found this the other day. It is the Blu-ray copy of every Invisible Man film by Universal. Found this at McKay's here near me. Absolutely love that store. It's where I found Shin Godzilla, which was essentially kind of my holy grail film for a while. This is one of my... black and white Universal horror is one of my I guess black and white universal horror isn't necessarily a genre in and of itself, but it feels like that to me. These are the movies that I was introduced to at a very young age by my uncle, and it's what has inspired me to love film as much as I do. A lot of good memories around these movies, and they will forever hold a very special place in my heart. And initially, Wolfman was my favorite. That's changed over the years. Invisible Man is my current favorite, strictly because of the amazing acting by Claude Rains. If you watch my intro, it is the very first thing that pops up. That new intro, by the way, is always meant to, even if it changes, like the clips that are in it, it is meant to give you a glimpse into me, essentially. I think any art, when we talk about what we love, it's kind of a glimpse at who we are. And so it begins with a clip from the movie The Invisible Man with Claude Rains, the very first one, which was 1933. And it's the perfect quote. You know, you're crazy to know who I am. All right, I'll show you. So it is the perfect quote for that. So I found this. This is kind of a holy grail right here. I've been searching for a Blu-ray copy of the original Invisible Man. Not only did I find that, but this version has Invisible Man Returns, The Invisible Woman, Invisible Agent, The Invisible Man's Revenge, and Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. So this right here, I literally just found it yesterday. Probably one of my new favorite things that I own. But on top of that, we obviously have what many consider to be the king of those, Bela Lugosi's Dracula. This copy was given to me by my very dear friend Kyle. We share a love of film and a love of classics, especially horror. So this has a very dear spot in my heart too, this particular copy. Some other films on that list that I will absolutely be breaking out. I share these with you because I really do want to start doing a physical film segment, essentially celebrating owning physical copies of your favorite films, because we need to do that. I've talked over and over and over about the importance of owning physical copies of your favorite films, your favorite art, your favorite creations that have been put out into this world by tremendous creators. So I share this as kind of underlining that point, essentially. Other movies that will absolutely be broken out. Salem's Lot, based on the Stephen King novel. If you haven't seen this, I consider this to be an absolute classic. So I'm sure I will do. I've done a written review of this on the page. If you just scroll down on my page, you'll see it, on my Facebook page. You'll see it. But this is an absolute timeless classic in my opinion, and I watch it multiple times a year, not just during fall. It's a good movie. It's a great movie. It's made for TV, actually. Obviously, The Thing, starring Kurt Russell, directed by John Carpenter. This movie right here is, if I have a horror Mount Rushmore, this is probably on it. This is just a spectacular film. I've probably already watched this movie at least 20 to 25 times this year. So this one right here is fantastic. I will absolutely be watching this again, especially during the horror season. And then one that I went and saw with my friend Kyle, that quickly became a favorite of mine. And I've reviewed it, I think, a couple times. I don't know that I don't think I've reviewed this via video, so I probably will during this horror season for a physical copy review. But it is The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I honestly, I can't wait to review this. I don't want to give anything away, but look for me to review this. This film right here, it's just special, and it's based around just a few pages near the beginning. As a matter of fact, it might have been in the prologue of Bram Stoker's Dracula, the novel. And the fact that it baffles me what they could do with just a few pages of a book. And this right here, it's just superb. It's superb. So, just a couple films, well, more than a couple, a few films that I'll be watching this horror season, among many, many others. So I will probably, I'm sure I will do a top 10 list of horror for this upcoming season. I am so pumped about fall. I know a lot of you are, and I cannot wait to share some of my favorite horror with y'all. Well, and that actually gets us into this particular review. One of my all-time, if not my all-time favorite horror genre franchise is Alien. I think that revolves a lot around kind of the mystery in it. I feel like, first of all, this franchise has now been around for 45 years. And it just keeps producing great movies. That's not really speaking to essentially Aliens 3 or the fourth film in the series, which I kind of deem as unwatchable. They're not good. Alien is one of those franchises that love-hate isn't the word for it. It's just I love it so much that I'm willing to give it as much leeway as possible. It's allowed for some reason to produce bad movies, and I'm okay with it. But the third and fourth, I legitimately tried to even put it on in a background not that long ago, and I couldn't keep it on. It's just, they're not good. But those first two are classics. If you've never seen those, go watch them. They're really well done. And, I think, like I said, the reason that I love these is we find out little nuggets with each passing one about these xenomorphs, as they're called, these alien beings that are just fascinating. My buddy Kyle, I was talking to him about it. We've talked about this franchise a few times, and he always highlights, and this is a great highlight, that part of the reason we may be so fascinated with these creatures is their humanistic qualities. If you're looking at them, they've got rib cages, 5 fingers, 2 legs. There's just pieces of them that are very, very human based. So I think that that is an important piece to this for sure. Um, you know, but despite everything that we know about them, there's still a lot of mystery that shrouds them, and in a way overshadows them. And I think that really plays into these movies as a whole. Lots of what's happening in the shadows, it plays into it very well. There's a lot of mystery here, and that makes it fun. You know, you feel like as you're watching these movies, yes, there are jump scares. Yes, there's grotesque scares. Um, but part of what makes it so scary is what you don't know, what you cannot explain. And I think that that's a brilliant piece to these movies, and part of why I love them so much. Um, Also, usually the acting is very well done. The original Alien, obviously Sigourney Weaver, um, um, I believe Tom Skerritt. Um, Let me just make sure. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up that cast list because it is worth mentioning. Um, the original, the first Alien, um, was, yes, Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt as Dallas, John Hurt as Kane, Ian Holm, which people will recognize from playing Bilbo Baggins in the Lord of the Rings franchise, not Bilbo Baggins in the Hobbit trilogy, but in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He's in it very young. Ian Holm does a great job in it. And then in the second film, Aliens, we have another pretty star-studded cast. Again, Sigourney Weaver, but you've also got um, Michael Biehn, uh, very well known for the Terminator series, but also well known, and I want to make sure I give a shout out to him on this role because it's one of my favorite roles by him, known as Johnny Ringo in the movie Tombstone. Um, he's absolutely wonderful, wonderful actor. Um, and then Bill Paxton, he delivers some of the most famous lines, I think, in the Alien franchise. Game over, man. We're through. Um, he's fantastic in this too. In Aliens, the second movie. So just some tremendous acting, and and that we'll let that kind of lead us into Alien Romulus. And I think it's important to bring those two movies up because, according to Fede Alvarez, who is the director of Alien Romulus, he is best known, or at least for me, he's best known for doing the newest version, the revamp of Evil Dead. Um, he's really good at the darker, thrilling, suspenseful scenes, but he's also good at that grotesque too. So it really plays in well with Alien, that universe. Um, but he has mentioned that this particular movie, Alien Romulus, takes place between the time periods of Alien, the first movie, and Aliens, the second movie. And so that's important context here, because I think there's a lot that probably, if you're thinking about this, information about what happened in the movie Alien wouldn't have necessarily gotten out. Nobody would know that these things even exist. So I think that's important to keep in mind. This isn't essentially. Let's talk about the plot just briefly. The plot of this is really, it's a group of young adults that are on a planet that is predominantly a mining planet. And I don't want to give too much away here, and I don't think this does, but they're on this kind of mining planet, and they just have really dark prospects for their future. And they, like anyone, are striving to break those chains of their, supposed destiny in life, their futures, and create a better future for themselves. And the way that they feel that they can do that is by getting off their planet. And that's really all I want to tell you outside of what you would see in the trailer. I will always share things that I feel I can that are in the trailers, because you're going to see the trailers. And trailers aren't really meant to ruin a movie for you. And if they are, I will call that out. But I don't think the trailer really ruins the movie here. So, but that being said, I know I've talked with some people that are fans of these movies, but that were kind of concerned, rightfully so, that, all right, so I've seen the trailer. You're telling me that these people just go up to the old ship and, they wouldn't have heard about what happened, which, I don't think they would have. If you really think about the first movie, there weren't really any survivors, and the one that did wouldn't really be spreading word, put it that way. So, Alien Romulus, it was directed by Fede Alvarez. The screenwriting, I'm hoping I don't butcher this name, but Rodo Sayegas. Acting was Kaylee Spaney, who many will recognize from the movie Civil War. If you haven't seen that, I did a review of that movie. I think it's a very important film, especially for the time period we find ourselves in. And she does a fantastic job in that movie. David Johnson, who I'll get more into these actors in a little bit. David Johnson plays a character known as Andy. And I'm absolutely blown away by his acting. This particular actor has a very bright future ahead of him. Very. And then Archie Renette. Before we get into the movie, like deep into the movie, let's talk about the box office. I always talk about that. Any numbers that I provide on this are coming from the website The Numbers. I want to make sure I give them a shout out because they're just an incredible website. They help us keep track of the box office currently. And historical box office numbers, which I'm going to use here in just a second. They also make projections, and they think, based on what I'm reading, that this particular movie could end up for its opening weekend doing 50 million. Now, in some of the reviews that I've done prior to this, that seems like a really small number, but it's not a small number, and I'm going to tell you why it's not a small number. 50 million, really about 51 million, would be the target number for Romulus. The reason being is because the best opening weekend any movie has had in the Alien franchise is the movie Prometheus, which, if you remember, starred Charlize Theron, Michael Fassbender, um, and I believe Guy Pearce may have been in that too. Star-studded cast, and I think Prometheus and Alien Covenant have kind of got us into this mindset that you have to have a star-studded cast for an Alien film. You don't. If you know, yes, the originals had some big actors and big names in it, but I don't know that some of them were the biggest of names when they were in it. So, you know, bear that in mind. Horror films are usually a really big launching point for a lot of actors. I don't know if you know that or not, but you know, you look at this particular genre, Johnny Depp, Nightmare on Elm Street. I believe that was his introductory role, was Nightmare on Elm Street, his first role ever. You know, Jennifer Aniston was in The Leprechaun. You know, Paul Rudd, Halloween H2O. I believe it was Halloween H2O. I could be wrong on that. But he was in one of the Halloween films for sure. You know, go back, and maybe in my future horror top 10 list or something, I'll bring this up and I'll have the full list. But go back if you can, Google the actors that have gotten starts, or at least when they were younger, started in horror, because it's baffling. So I think we're seeing that. I think this is going to be one of those movies that we look back on for Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, because I think both are going to be tremendous actors going forward. I think this is going to be one of those we look back on and go, oh yeah, I totally forgot they were in an Alien movie. So anyway, back to what I was saying. They're projecting this to do $50 million. That is a big deal for an opening weekend for an Alien movie, because Prometheus did $51 million in its opening weekend. It was the best opening weekend at the box office for an Alien film. That can have big implications for its overall domestic gross, and I'm saying domestic, also worldwide, but I'm focusing in on domestic. That can have significant implications, and helping project what we would expect as well for its domestic weekend. Prometheus did 51 on its opening weekend, 51 million. It went on domestically at the box office to produce 126.5 million at the domestic box office. That's the number one film in the Alien franchise at the domestic box office, based on domestic box office numbers. That's followed by Aliens, the second film, which many deem to be the pinnacle of the Alien franchise. There's debate between people that love this franchise of which is better, Alien or Aliens. I tend to lean more into the Alien category, but Aliens was number two. It did 85.2 million. In third was Alien versus Predator, which did 80.3 million at the domestic box office. Fourth is Alien Covenant, which produced 74.3 million at the domestic box office, followed by Alien, 64.3 million. Alien 3, 54.9 million. Alien Resurrection, which was the fourth, that did 47.8 million at the domestic box office. Aliens versus Predator Requiem did 41.8 million. And now we have Alien Romulus. So Alien Romulus doing 51 million opening weekend, that is a massive deal. It could wind up being the #1 film in the Alien franchise in terms of total domestic box office gross. Um, so, you know, there's many ways we can do top 10 lists, or just top lists. But in terms of numbers, can't argue with numbers, and that's coming from a data guy. You just can't argue with them. And money wise, those numbers, it could wind up being the #1 Alien film of all time. So that's important. That's important. Currently, where it actually sits, as of the last time I checked, it is sitting at the domestic box office with 41.5 million, which is still great. That would put it as still the second best, if it stayed that, which it may or may not, that would put it as the second highest opening weekend in film. Its budget was 80 million, to put that in perspective. So we've talked about the plot a little bit. I want to just jump straight into essentially the pros and cons, or where I give mad props, playing on that word props, obviously, to this particular movie. Pros. First of all, directing. I think Fede Alvarez brings an unbelievable eye to this franchise, and this movie in particular. He has a knack for dark storytelling and the grotesque, which is needed in an Alien movie. Let's go through the cast of characters in the monster realm here for just a second. You've got eggs that hatch, and face huggers that come out of said eggs. Those face huggers, obviously very reminiscent of spiders, that run around really fast. They're called face huggers because they jump onto the face. If I don't have the movie poster pulled up, I'll pull it up right now, so you can see what that looks like. But they launch onto the face, latch on, and wrap their tails around the throat to where they will strangle the person if you try to pull them off. Which leads people to, in these films, in these stories, to not pull them off because they don't want to kill that human, but they're really actually killing them. Let's be honest. Because what those facehuggers are doing is essentially impregnating them, that human, with an alien life form. That leads to the next piece of the cast of characters in this monster universe, and that is the little xenomorphs that then bust out of the chest cavity of the humans. They go on to be gigantic xenomorphs that have acid spit, tails that can slice and dice anything and anyone they come in contact with, long claws, the little mouth within their big mouth that can pop out and attack, and just a tremendous knowledge and intelligence, more so than the humans, for sure. So just kind of an apex predator, really. But I say all of that, I describe all of that because it's grotesque. Always is. So you need a director that's good with that. And Fede Alvarez absolutely is. He proved that in the most recent rendition and revamp of Evil Dead, which was absolutely grotesque. So that style of horror. So he brings a brilliant eye to this franchise, to this movie, particularly in facehugger scenes. I'm not going to talk a lot about specific scenes, obviously, because I don't want to ruin anything in this movie for you. But I will talk about what is shown in the trailer that you would have already seen. The scene where they're in the water in that one room and facehuggers start falling out into the water. That scene is spectacularly suspenseful. Just the way that suspense is built, you're on the edge of your seat. You are absolutely on the edge of your seat. He does it superbly, Alvarez, superbly. And the way he involves one of the characters in particular, don't want to get into who that is, but if you see this, you will know who I'm talking about, is masterfully done. And the pose in one of the shots that this character is in and the way it ushers in what is coming is brilliant. So don't want to talk about who that is. I don't want to give anything away, but you will know when you see the movie what I'm talking about. Additionally, there's another scene with the facehuggers that we see in this movie, and I don't want to give anything away on it, but it is also masterfully done. We learned something, at least for me, I learned something new about these creatures and their hunting pattern, essentially. That, you know, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but that's one of the other things about this movie that gets it points from me, is that it was not afraid to expand this story, to expand this universe, and give us more information about these creatures. That's important because that's the difference between just doing fan service and actually contributing to the overall storyline. And Fede Alvarez has not shied away from the fact that he is a massive fan of the Alien franchise. So I think that he does it absolute service in the best of ways. So that's the directing. That's that pro. Let's get into the next one, cinematography. The shots in this movie are some of the best I've seen. Easily. I mean, right up there with Dune Part 2. Some of the shots are absolutely gorgeous. And I think it's easy to do that with space movies, but it's also easy to not, just with movies in general. And they absolutely do it here. Absolutely do it here. There are shots of space in general that are done really, really well, that make you feel small, as it should, that make you feel isolated, as it should, for this particular movie. There are shots on the ship that are gorgeously done. And the way they play with sound, too. Oh, my goodness. In these shots. where there's no sound. It's just silence. And then they usher in sound. It's just, chef's kiss on that. Brilliantly done. The director of photography is Galo Oliveras. Hope I pronounced that right. Just spectacularly done. A match made in heaven between him and Fede Alvarez for sure. For sure. A lot of these shots are as good as they are, and a lot of this movie is as good as it is because of the fact that they used a lot of practical effects. They're not shy about talking about this, and they shouldn't be. The more that we can use practical effects in movies, I think the better. I think that's true magic. You know, I don't want to knock CGI. I think it has a place, obviously. But in many ways, it can be the easy route. And the easy route isn't always the best route. And it can be highly noticeable. You know, practical effects to me are true magic. That is true movie magic. Because you can kind of, at this point, you can get computers to do whatever you want them to do. So kudos to them for the practical effects used. That includes the alien itself, the xenomorphs. Those were, in many, many instances, and I'm sure they blended some CGI with it, but in many, many instances, animatronic. Awesomely done. The face huggers, many, 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 many instances, animatronic. They've shown clips of this, and if I can find it, I'll drop it in here right now so you can see shots of this.
That's where he is. It really does. I'm confused.
Face huggers, xenomorphs. The use of animatronics on this is brilliantly done, and really, in many ways, I think adds to the realism of what you're experiencing and makes it more believable. You know, they did marketing on this and some guerrilla marketing on it that, my goodness, had people on the streets, I believe, of New York, with, you know, face huggers on them, you know, being attacked. Had people lying down that had an alien bust out of them, you know, them laying on a sidewalk or something like that. Brilliantly done. So kudos to the marketing team on this thing, because that was done very well too. The sets themselves are absolutely gorgeous. Plays into the shadows, the dark shots, the use of light and dark in this is fantastic. And the shots inside the Romulus craft itself are absolutely dazzling. So, another pro, it's an interesting premise story-wise. You know, the young adults trying to navigate their lives and get something better for themselves, fight for a better future for themselves. You can't help but latch onto that. I think any of us in the instance, if any of us found ourselves in the instances that these young adults found themselves in, we would do that. And wouldn't just lay down and accept fate. We would take control. And that that is shown in this movie. I think there's also a discussion about artificial intelligence and the role it plays. If even if they just stumbled upon that. But I also think there's a little bit of a undercurrent theme here about just the importance of all life forms, and the respect for all life forms. That's shown very much so. I think that's kind of a discussion in alien films in general. These films with dazzling creatures, apex predators, things like Alien, Jurassic Park. It's all about a respect of life in many instances, and the dangers of playing a creator. But I think even more so here, there's starting to be a very interesting conversation in film about artificial intelligence, robots, animatronics. What if they were just as, I don't know that sentient is the word, but what if they were just as similar to humans, as they could be? How would we treat them? Would we just essentially make them slaves or workers, simply meant to do our bidding? Or would we treat them like a created thing? Not even a thing. Because I think in this movie, there is a line, and I don't think this ruins anything, but there is a line from the particular android where he says something along the lines of, "I prefer artificial person," or something along those lines. The movie The Creator hit on this too. So I think that's a very interesting discussion, and how that plays out in a real world scenario where there is artificial intelligence and animatronic beings that pretty much can think freely and act freely. So very interesting. So there's also a discussion in this movie, as there are in multiple films, including this one, about survival, and the tough decisions that may or may not need to be made. Lose one to save three, things like that. So I think that is brilliantly shown in this movie. And then, of course, like I said, there's more information on the Alien universe, which is awesome. Expanding the universe. The acting. I said I was going to get back to this. The acting is brilliant. Kaylee Spaney is absolutely believable in every scene that she's in, as the main protagonist. And then David Johnson. David Johnson crushes the role of Andy. When I say I expect big things from this actor, I expect big things from this actor in the future. I'm not going to get too into it because I don't want to ruin this, but he undergoes a critical transformation, and it's a night and day transformation. I mean, night and day. and it's flawless. It's flawless. So he deserves mad props on that. That is not an easy thing to do by any means. And he sticks the landing. And probably my favorite character in the whole movie, to be honest. So, this is an Alien film. It is paying some fan service, obviously. So there are some fun Easter eggs and callbacks and things like that in this movie. One big one in particular that I'm not going to talk about too much because I'm not a believer in ruining cameos, but the reason I do want to talk about it is it leads into the cons of this movie section, and it involves CGI. And for this particular scene, or scenes for that matter, it's very noticeable. It's very noticeable, and it kind of disrupts your viewing, your mindset, your following of what's happening. That's bad. You don't want that. And I feel like it did, at least for me. It just wasn't done well. And I think that highlights, why you got to be careful with CGI. Talked about that earlier. It's a double-edged sword. It can produce some stunning shots. It can also completely destroy a scene. So, also another one of the cons. This happened quite a bit. There were a lot of instances where something occurred, and I said to myself, "Wait a minute, what? That couldn't happen," or "That's totally unbelievable." And then it was, as soon as I thought it, explained with a line of exposition, which is awesome. I do give kudos for that. But I only really give kudo points for that when it doesn't happen as often as it did in this movie. Because when it happens a lot, what that tells me is that's weak storytelling. That is weak writing. I think if you're finding yourself in a scene where you're, whether you're writing or directing, if you find yourself in a scene and you're saying, this is unbelievable, the audience isn't going to buy this, then it is incumbent upon you to either, number one, make it believable, find a way visually, either prior to that particular scene or during it, to get buy-in to that idea, to that thing happening. If you can't, then it's incumbent upon you, even if it's a good shot, even if it's a cool scene, to just not include it. So, the instances of things being explained by a line of dialogue happened a lot, and that's a problem in my opinion. Then there's a particular scene at the very end of the movie where something happens. I'm not going to say what, but something happens that has absolutely no explanation and impacts the whole story, in my opinion, and kind of somewhat ruins things. If you did, and it kills me because if you'd have just done one thing, and I can't say what it is, but if you'd have done one thing, it would have solved that whole problem. So it lost points because of that. Now, let's get into rating. Okay, I've not given you a real glimpse, and you know what? I'm probably going to hold off on that for just a little bit. Real Glimpse is a segment I do where I show you trailers of my most anticipated. I do the hard work for you. I go through the list of trailers of movies that are coming out, and I watch every single trailer, every single one of them, and I pick what I think are going to be fantastic films, just to me. Because of the way I did that, the first time I did it, it started getting into this 1 foot in 1 month, 1 foot in another. I don't want to do that. If I'm going to do a real glimpse, I want to do just a month. Here's the future month. Here's what's coming out that month that I'm really excited about. I did write down a bunch of notes for a real glimpse. I just haven't recorded it. And like I said, I think I'm going to push that off and just do a full one for the month of September, movies that are coming out then. But I did take notes on this movie. My projection would have been a 7 or an 8 from me. IMDb currently gives this movie a 7.5 out of 10, which is high marks from IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes gives this an 81%. It is certified fresh. And the audience score is an 86%. I give this movie an 8 out of 10. An 8 out of 10 because of everything I have already mentioned. I think it is extraordinarily well done. I think it is a tremendous film to add to the Alien franchise. And unlike Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection, it's actually watchable, which is great. I think this was a fantastic movie on all fronts. Directing, writing, again, there were some weaknesses there, but overall, really, really well done. The acting, Kaylee Spaney, and David Johnson, wow, just absolutely stunning. So this has been Alien Romulus, and I give that a 10 an 8 out of 10.